Hey, guitar playing champions, want to know how to increase your fretting hand speed on the guitar? Today, I show you how to develop your left hand technique so that when you want to play guitar fast, it feels easy and not hard. So I'm going to teach you how to play guitar with a lighter touch, less tension, and better focus so that building your speed in your fretting hand is easier. Then I'll give you one of the most effective practice methods I use to train guitar students around the world to develop crazy fretting hand speed. It's fast, easy, and simple, but it works, and I'll show you why and how it works. When I began playing guitar, one of the hardest things for me was developing my guitar speed. Whenever I tried to play faster, it felt hard and difficult. The faster I tried to play, the more tensed up I'd get. My fretting hand fingers would fatigue quickly, and then I'd have to take a break from practicing the fast or hard stuff. I always felt that whenever I had to take a break from guitar speed practice, I couldn't push my technique further and further. So I'd try again the next day, and the exact same thing would happen. I'd get fatigued, and then I'd have to stop. So years later, I finally learned why I seemed stuck in this pattern and why my fretting hand speed was not really improving. And once I made some really small changes to how I approached practicing to build my guitar speed, everything became easier. Now, since that time, I've taught thousands of guitar players from around the world in my online guitar lessons, and many of them now play really, really fast, and the speed is now easy for them. So today I'm going to share some of what I teach those guys, so grab your guitar and let's build your guitar speed. So the first thing you need to learn about building guitar speed is actually what you do before you start practicing. So I'm talking about warming up. Now, you might be thinking, man, I already know all that. I heard that a million times before. Warm up so you don't get injured and all that stuff. Let's just skip that and get to the good stuff. Don't skip it. Here's why. Number one, I skipped it when I was starting out, and it was a big mistake. I skipped it because I didn't think that there was really any serious risk of me actually getting hurt playing guitar, so I figured, we don't need to warm up. Let's just get started. Let's just start practicing. Let's not waste any practice time. And I thought I was being more efficient with my practice time by not warming up and just diving in. Just thinking to myself, I don't need to do that. Let's just start shredding. Well, actually, there are other reasons to warm up besides simply preventing an injury, and that is the key thing to building speed is preventing fatigue. So when you warm up and your hands are not totally warm, the blood in your hands is thicker, and your fingers don't move completely freely. Warming up helps to thin out that blood, and it also helps to make the fingers more loose and limber and easier to move. That is critical because when you try to develop building speed, if your hand, your wrist, your fingers start to feel fatigued, you are actually at more risk of injury. But even if we remove that or don't talk about that, you simply are not able to play as fast as you could if you were warmed up. And because of that, what happens is you start tensing your muscles. Your body gets tense because the speed is hard, and pushing the speed gets harder because you're not fully warmed up. So then we start using power and force and tension to try to overcome the fact that we're not warmed up. And that makes you fatigue very quickly. And when you get fatigued, you've got to stop. At least you should stop at that point, okay? We're not building endurance here where you might keep going. We're looking to build speed. So when you have to stop, you're not getting faster, you're just standing still. So by warming up properly, you'll be able to practice the speed without having to stop. Now, the next secret here is that guitar speed is mostly developed in your brain, not so much in your fingers. I mean, your fingers have something to do with it, but really it happens here, developing the right neural pathways in your mind to execute all the little motions at the right time. And while you're warming up, this is the perfect time to develop and strengthen the neural pathways in your mind. So even though you may not be warmed up yet when you're starting, you can still be developing your speed by developing those neural pathways, making sure that everything that you're doing is efficient, is the right motion, is economical, okay, with the right articulation and the right movements. You can practice that and get better at playing fast even when you're not yet playing fast or you're not playing as fast as you could, because you're programming the neural pathways in your mind. The next secret that we need to develop here, and this still relates to warming up, is in order to play fast, you've got to play with a light touch. If you start gripping your guitar and squeezing as you start fretting, especially if you play loud or fast or with a lot of power in this hand, often what happens is that this hand starts gripping, and we don't want that to happen, because the more power you use in the fretting hand, the faster you're going to fatigue, the slower you're going to play. So we want the touch to be very, very, very light, and we'll talk about that in just a few minutes about how to get that. But the point right now is that when you're warming up, you're stiff, so make sure that you're going really light as you're playing through a scale or arpeggio or a lick, because you cannot ever fully play with a light touch unless you are totally warmed up. So when you're warming up, super light touch, and then after you're warmed up, you'll be able to play with a lighter touch because you are warmed up. All right, so before we go any further into this lesson about building your fretting hand guitar speed, I've got another video on YouTube you should definitely check out. It's called Guitar Warm-Up Exercises. It's a step-by-step tutorial. Go check that one out. Go watch that. Go follow the steps, and then come back and watch the rest of this video. The next secret here to building guitar speed is better focus. It's about what you think about and how you think while you're practicing. So here's a really cool tip for you. Anytime that you're practicing something, especially something that repeats again and again, and you're just cycling through again and again and again, when your brain goes on autopilot and it's no longer having to concentrate, your fingers might give you the illusion that you're getting faster because they're more and more warmed up and the blood is really thin and everything is really warm. You get the illusion that you're getting better, but you're not getting that much better, maybe a teeny tiny bit. But when you really get better is when your brain has to think, when it has to focus. Because when your brain is using its effort, its concentration on what you're doing, you're really thinking about the individual motions and everything that your hands are doing. In your brain, you've got these neural pathways, and wrapped around those neural pathways is a milky white substance called myelin. And myelin gets developed best when your brain has to concentrate. So when your brain goes on autopilot and you're no longer really having to think about what you're doing and you can sort of do it in your sleep or whatever, your hands are getting warmed up, but that myelin isn't really getting further developed. You're firing the right neural pathways, hopefully, but you're not building that myelin very much. So when concentration and focus builds and strengthens those neural pathways, which then helps you to later play fast with ease and automatically where it feels natural. Now, this myelin that I just talked about gets developed in between practice sessions. Sort of like, not exactly in the same way, but I can give you sort of an analogy. When you go to the gym and you work out, you're not getting stronger when you're lifting weights. You get stronger in between workout sessions when the body heals and repairs after you've torn the muscles. Well, myelin is not about tearing anything. It doesn't develop in that same way, but the gym analogy is still a good one. So what I'm going to suggest for you to do, instead of finding an hour or 2 hours a day or whatever to practice your guitar in one long session, try to practice shorter periods of time, but multiple times per day. So find 20 minutes in the morning, find another 15, 20, 30 minutes in the afternoon, and then find another 20, 30 minutes or longer if you like in the evening. And you put those together, the development of myelin in your brain is going to develop faster than if you did the same amount of practice but all in one session, because now your brain is kind of going on autopilot. You've done the same things for so long and it's easy to lose focus. So remember, you get better in between the sessions. Now, another key ingredient here is playing with less tension, to be as relaxed as we can be as we play and practice. I've got another video here that goes into a lot of detail on this. Go check it out. It's called Guitar Speed Lesson. Less tension equals more guitar speed. Go check that out. All right, so let's summarize a couple of the key points I mentioned earlier. The first is it's critical that you're warmed up and that you can use that warm-up time to develop the neural pathways in your brain, okay? And while you're warming up and after you're warming up, you want to have as light of a touch as possible for the fretting hand. Now, when you do a light touch in the fretting hand, you play very lightly. Often what happens among students that I teach and train is that they start picking very lightly. So they have a light touch over here and a very light touch over here. So it's really quiet and timid. You can hardly hear it because they're picking very lightly while they're fretting very lightly. Well, it is good that we have a light touch in the fretting hand. It's not so good if the articulation is so wimpy that no one wants to listen to it. So the key here first is develop the light touch in the fretting hand, okay? And then to be able to, when you put the two hands together, make sure that you can still pick hard with strong articulation in the picking hand while maintaining a light touch in the fretting hand. One other thing that I'll tell you about this is that when you practice with the light touch, very often the mistake that people make is that in their brain, they associate light touch with slow, lazy motions. So we still want the fingers to move quickly. We just don't want to squeeze. We don't want to have a lot of downward force on the guitar. So very light touch, but as you're doing it, we want the fingers to move fast. So fast motion, but light touch. Think speed, not power, okay? Now we don't want to play wimpy, so the note's got to be clear and you've got to move your finger fast once you decide to make the motion. This is critical. But don't grip the guitar. Don't use power. Speed and power are not the same, and you need to remember that while practicing. And the other thing is tension. Tension prevents a light touch from being possible because you start squeezing, you start using more power than necessary. So we want to make sure that we are not tense. And I don't mean just to be not tense in your hand or your arm, but everywhere. So some people curl their feet, their toes like this when they play. Some people grind their teeth. They do they do weird things with their shoulders. Just be aware that tension is a killer of guitar speed most of the time. So we want to be watching out for that and stay relaxed, especially while you're fretting with the fretting hand. So today I've shared with you some secrets to building your fretting hand guitar speed. And if you want to build even more guitar speed with your fretting hand, you're going to love my new free e-guide where I go into a lot more detail than what I shared today. And it's called Mastering Fretting Hand Finger Independence for Guitar Players. It's totally free, no strings attached. I think you're going to love this. Click on the link below to download your copy right now.